Well, let me just start without the slides just yet. A lot of what we've been doing is talking about is the puzzle of how there can be meaning, how there can be representation of the objects around us, how there can be sentences that are right or wrong in the world as described by physics. And in a way, that's one version, one aspect of the mind-body problem, how there can be mind in a physical world. Another, the more dramatic example of the mind-body problem is the problem of conscious experience. How come there can be sensations? How come there can be pains and headaches and thrills of joy and pangs and itches and so on in a physical world? Where do these things fit in to the physics of the brain? And the way I've been setting things up so far, these are two, for all I've said, quite separate problems. There's a problem about how you can represent the world around you, even though you're just a physical thing governed by physical laws. And there's a problem of how you can have these conscious sensations, conscious experiences. And that looks like quite a different problem. But one way to suggest is that these are actually connected problems. If you think about what Fodor and Rechke were doing when they were trying to explain how there could be representation in a physical world, the idea there was you can characterize the ability to represent the world around you as a matter of having this causal responsiveness to the world. In principle, the same kind of causal responsiveness that a bacterium might have to its environment. And you can do all that, you can address those questions, what kind of causal responsiveness is that, without thinking about whether the organism has experience, whether the organism is conscious. And that's a very clean kind of approach to the issue. But if thought about your surroundings depends on experience of your surroundings, then the problem is actually going to be much more difficult. If you think about Pollution's way of, if you weren't here the last couple of sessions, has everyone looked at the pollution? Do you have some sense of what goes on in the pollution? This idea of a visual index in your visual system in the brain, tracking the things around you. In principle, you could have something like the kind of visual system Pollution is describing, even though you weren't conscious. An organism that wasn't conscious, a humble honeybee or something like that, might have these kind of visual indexes, be able to keep track of multiple objects in a display. And Pollution would say that's representing the world around it, that's referring to the objects around it, even though it has no awareness of the objects in the world around it. Suppose you think, though, of someone who's blind-sighted. I don't know how widely known blind sight is. Can you put your hand up if you've had a blind sight? Okay, but I thought that's quite a lot. Okay, a blind sight patient is someone who has had damage to the visual system in their brain. So basically the back of their head has been damaged, where the visual system comes from the eyes to the back of the brain, then to a first big, what's what I want, destination at the back of the brain. Then the visual system splits into two parts, up to the top and down to the bottom. And it's thought that the part at the top is carrying the part at the top is carrying visual experience. The part at the bottom is letting you act and move in relation to the world around you on the basis of vision. So they're both visual, but only one part of it is carrying experience. In a blind sight patient, there's no input to the stuff at the top. There is no input to the stuff that carries experience. So this patient has no visual experience of the world in one half of their visual field. That's to say, you've got this patient, and if you say, can you see how many fingers I'm holding up on this left side of your visual field? The answer is, I don't know. I can't see a thing there. They have no experience in the left side of the visual field. If you say to them, guess, just guess how many, they reliably get it right. Not always, but well above chance. If you say to them, there's a line in the left side of your visual field, is it upright or horizontal? They say, well, I have no idea. I can't see a thing there. They have no experience in that side of their visual field. You say to them, go on, we'll give you $5 if you guess. And they say, all right, well, I'll guess, but I have no idea. And they guess, well, it's upright. And they are reliably correct as to whether it's upright or not. And the patients themselves are typically quite surprised that they're getting it right so often, I mean, as you would be. Okay? So in blind sight, someone is getting visual information from some part of their visual field that they have no experience in. So they can be reliably making correct guesses about the orientation of a line in the blind field, even though they have no experience there. If you say, reach for the object in your blind field, they will shape their hand correctly to pick up the object, whether it's a cup or a bottle or whatever it is. They will shape their hand correctly to pick up that thing. Suppose that this was quite general. Suppose you're a patient who could reliably make correct guesses about all aspects of what was in their blind field. They say, is it a person? Is it a TV? Well, what is it in your blind field? They get it right, let's suppose, every time. The empirical facts are that blind sight patients originally thought they were just getting right these very primitive things about the orientation of a line and how to shape their hand, and then experimenters probed more and more just how much the patient could be shown to be getting about what was in their blind field, and it's just a startling amount. So this is going beyond the data, but it's going in the direction of the data to suppose you get everything right. The shape, the colour, is it a person? Who is it in your blind field? But they have no awareness of that. Is that patient in a position to understand reference to things in their blind field? They might have Pollution-style visual indexes tracking the objects in their blind field. But if you say, that person in your blind field, do they know who you're talking about? Are they in a position to understand the singular term? I mean, what's your hunch? Do you have a hunch? Have I explained this correctly? Oh, of course, yes. Okay, well, try this. Suppose that just as you sit here, someone says to you, who's that woman over there? You know, you drift off from the lecture, the person beside you drifts off from the lecture, they nudge you and they say, who's that woman over there? and you look round, and all you get is a sea of faces. You can't distinguish which one it is that the person is talking about. And they say, well, what is this person wearing? Guess. And you say, I have no idea. I have no idea which person you're talking about. And they say, well, guess, is that person wearing a scarf? And you say, well, then they say, look, we'll give you $5. Just do it. Just do the guess. And you do the guess, and you get it right. They say, that's right. They're wearing a scarf. They say, is this person brown-haired or light-haired? You say, well, I have no idea who you're talking about. And you say, $5. And they guess. And they get it right. Say, are they sitting or standing is not too good. Are their arms folded or out in front of them? And you guess, and you get it right. Suppose you keep doing this. So you are just like the blind-sighted person. You're reliably making the correct guesses about about the characteristics of the person your neighbour is referring to. But do you know who they're talking about? What would you say in that situation? I'll tell you what I would say. I would say, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know which person this is. Though I understand that I'm making all these correct guesses. Does that sound insane? How many of you would say, no, you do know who they're talking about, it's just that you don't have experience of them? I mean, that's just a contradiction to me. You see what I mean? You do know who they're talking about. Ordinarily, if I say to you, who is that man over there? Then look, as you look around the room, your gaze lights now on one person, now on another. You, as it were, put a bit of yellow highlighter in your experience, first over this person, then over that person. You see what I mean? You single them out in your experience. And if someone says to you, who is that man there? Then what you have to do is single out that person from the crowd and say, that's it, that's the one they're talking about, that's the one I'm referring to. That's usually what would make you say, yeah, I see which one you mean. If you can't do that, if you just get to see your faces, then you're going to say, I don't know who you're referring to. It seems to me that if you've got a blind sight patient who can make these correct guesses about what's going on in the blind field, then in Wittgenstein's sense, this patient knows the use of the sign. This patient is going to say, that person is wearing a jacket, that person is wearing a scarf, in just the right circumstances. In Wittgenstein's sense, they've got the use of the sign. They talk the right way. The way they talk with the sign fits in with what everyone else is doing. But the patient doesn't know who the sign stands for. The patient doesn't have the reference of the sign. The patient hasn't managed to single that thing out in experience. Just the way when it's all a sea of faces, you haven't managed to single out who it is that we're talking about. So if that's right, then it's your experience of the object, it's your conscious awareness of an object that gives you knowledge of what that sign stands for. It's not just a causal connection. You could have a causal connection to the object without having experience of it. A blind sight patient has got a causal connection to the object, but they just don't have experience of it. So it's when you have experience of the thing that you know which thing we're talking about. It's experience of the object that gives you knowledge of reference. So this makes the mind-body problem here worse, not better, right? Because the problem of how there can be right or wrong in your use of a sign is related to this problem about consciousness. It's only because you're conscious that you can know which objects your signs stand for. You can't be said to know who someone is referring to in this kind of case unless you're aware of that person, unless you single them out in experience. So that's my first claim today. If you're going to have reference to an object, you've got to have experience of that thing. When Frege was talking about your take on the thing, your way of being given the thing, the mode of presentation of the thing, and really the basic case of that is a case where you're aware of the thing and there's some way that you're aware of it. It has to do with your way of experiencing the object. That's what we're talking about. So reference depends on experience. Plain enough? Okay. Well, this is actually what Russell was saying. You remember back when we were talking about descriptions in singular terms, descriptions and proper names. So Russell had, this is in the last reading in the reader. He says, well, you can have knowledge by description of something. You can make a remark about, let's say, the tallest person in this room. I can say, well, the tallest person in this room, I bet you anything, the tallest person in this room weighs more than 150 pounds. That's pretty safe. Really, I think I can say I know that. The tallest person in this room weighs more than 150 pounds. The tallest person in this room is, I would guess, over 5'10". Yeah. You can build up a picture there. You can get quite a lot of knowledge just by thinking about it, what characteristics the tallest person in the room must have. You can do all that without having identified which person is the tallest. You didn't have to get everybody lined up and figure out which one is the tallest to do that. When scientists take a notion like the center of mass of the solar system and figure out what characteristics it must have, what kind of gravitational forces will there be on the center of mass of the solar system, you can do that without having figured out where it is. You don't need to know which place that is in order to figure out things about it. So just from having a description of the thing, you can figure out that there is such a thing. You can say, well, there's got to be such a thing. It's very unlikely that there's no person who's the tallest in the room. Surely there must be such a thing as the center of mass of the solar system. And you can figure out just from the description what kind of characteristics it's got to have. That's different to when you take, I'll be with you in a second. That's different from when you simply encounter someone and find out about this person just by seeing what they're like. Suppose you take a notion like the first headache I'm going to have in the new year. You take a notion like the first headache I'm going to have next year. Let's say that you can say what you like, but that's very unlikely to be caused by theory of meaning, right? It might be, but it's unlikely, right? You could say, well, I know that the first headache I have next year will be caused by Sally. That I can just tell you right now. You can know that without knowing anything about the headache as a result of having a direct encounter with it. So you can know about your headache by description. You can say, well, the first headache I'm going to have in 2009. But then there's a kind of characterization you have of a headache when you actually have it. When you say, this headache is unendurable. This pain is exquisite. This headache is sharp and piercing. It's not the dull, heady kind. This is one of the sharp, stabbing variety. When in these cases, you have your knowledge of the headache not by figuring out that there is such a thing and saying what it's got to be like. You have it just as a result of your direct encounter with the thing. That's what Russell calls knowledge by acquaintance. It's not the art of a description of the thing. You just encountered it, and that told you what it was like. And Russell says, I say I'm acquainted with the object. I don't just have knowledge by description of it. I'm acquainted with the object when I have a direct cognitive relation to that object. That is, when I'm directly aware of the object itself. So you can make remarks like the tallest person in the room will be over 5'10". That's a different thing than if you just encounter someone and on the basis of seeing what height they are, say, this person's over 5'10". And it's experience that's providing you with acquaintance. Experience and direct awareness are the same thing. Russell says, I use the word acquaintance to emphasize the relational character of the fact with which we're concerned. So it's not that you're representing the thing. When you're having the headache, when you're encountering the headache, it's not that you're representing it. You're directly related to your own headache. It's just you and the headache and this relation of acquaintance between you. So you're not representing it, you're just encountering it. And Russell says, we'll say we have acquaintance with anything of which we're directly aware without the intermediary of any process of inference or any knowledge of truth. So when you have the primal confrontation with the object you're going to think about, it is just you and the object and this relation of acquaintance, this relation of consciousness. It's not that you're representing it, it's not that you have a description of it, it's that you have this direct confrontation with it. No inferences, no representation of what's true about the object. And then when you ask, what is it that we're acquainted with? Russell thinks it's sense data that you're acquainted with. It's your own sense data that you encounter and experience. What experience gives you, first and foremost, is your own sensations. When you see a colour or you hear a noise, what you're getting immediately is that encounter with the colour patch or the auditory sense datum itself. And then also he thinks it's not just that you're acquainted with a particular sound or a particular patch. You also get general characteristics. You can encounter Sally, but you can also be acquainted with, encounter the is, tall part. There are also universals or general characteristics that you can encounter and experience. Not only are we aware of particular yellows, but if you've seen a sufficient number of yellows and have sufficient intelligence, you're aware of the universal yellow. So you can encounter the yellowness itself in experience. Though Russell says, we tend to notice only the particulars and not notice the general characteristics, but if you just focus, you can do it. You can recognize that you are encountering the yellowness, and you can make judgments like yellow is different to blue, or yellow resembles blue less than green does. I guess that's true. Yellow resembles blue less than green does. These are judgments about universals, not judgments about particular things. You can do that because you've experienced yellow and blue and green. So what's going on is that in experience, you encounter particulars, you also encounter universals. You put them together, you have propositions. That's the basis of your ability to think about the things around you. That capacity to be acquainted with particulars, to be acquainted with universals, and put them together in judgments. So the universal yellow is a predicate in judgments like, this is yellow, where this is a particular sense datum that you're acquainted with, that you're encountering in experience. So it's not some causal responsiveness, and it's not some pattern of use that's providing you with your understanding of a statement like, this is yellow. It's not the fact that you're embedded in a broader community, and it's not the way you respond to your environment. It's that you are encountering the object, and you're acquainted with the universal yellowness. Russell thinks among the objects with which we're acquainted are not included physical objects, nor other people's minds. You only find out about the physical objects by description. You can say, I'm having some table-ish sense data. Therefore, there must be such a thing as the table that is causing these sense data. Just as you can say, there must be such a thing as the center of mass of the solar system, and then go on to speculate about what it's like. You can say, there's got to be a table out there, otherwise why would I be having all these table-ish sense data? You frame the description, the cause of these table-ish sense data, the table that's causing these sense data, and then you can speculate about what it's got to be like. Other people's minds. You can't be directly acquainted with someone else's mind. You can see that they're writhing in agony, crying out in pain, and saying, say, since all that's going on, there is likely a pain behind all that. Let us conjecture as to what it's like. But you know about someone else's pain by description, just the same way you know about the center of mass of the solar system. It's a hypothesis that there is such a thing. These things, the tables, the chairs, the other people, the other minds, other people's mental states, you know about them by description, whereas the basic proper names you know about on the basis of acquaintance. So your merely descriptive knowledge of the such and such, the so-and-so, although you know the so-and-so exists, and although you may be acquainted with the object that is in fact the so-and-so, but you don't know any proposition of the form A is the so-and-so, where A is a proper name, where A is a term like this or that, where A is something with which you're acquainted. So that's Russell's distinction between knowledge by acquaintance and knowledge by description. And there's a difference between